The new theater of the mind. The Bruce Collins Show.
Welcome back to the Bruce Collins Show. We're very glad to have you join us. Tonight, we're talking trends and terrible sea creatures. Joining us from Scotland will be the resident Loch Ness Monster expert, Roland Watson, and legendary trends commentator, Gerald Celente. The Bruce Collins Show airs every Friday night at midnight right here at WWPR, 1490 AM. You can listen to past archives of the Bruce Collins Show at ipbn-fm.com. That's ipbn-fm.com. There's a banner just for the Bruce Collins Show on the Intrepid Paradigm Broadcasting Network website. Click on the show banner and you will go right to our page. We would appreciate it if you're able to spread the word for our show by word of mouth, social media, or in whatever creative way you can. Also, we have a Facebook page for the Bruce Collins Show. Please like us there. And you can email the show at bruce_collins_show@AOL.com. The Bruce Collins Show also has a YouTube channel. Visit YouTube, search for the Bruce Collins Show channel, subscribe, and catch all the latest shows on YouTube. And now let me introduce my co-host, Chad Miles. He's a former congressional candidate in Michigan and a military veteran and is the founder and webmaster at Conspiria.net. Check that out today, Conspiria.net. You can also find out more information on Chad at chadmiles.com. He's radio's lethal weapon, Chad Miles. Welcome back to the program, Chad.
Hey, thanks, Bruce. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good these days, but you know what? Lately I've been having some problems with my vision.
Yeah, well, you're wearing an eye patch.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Why are you wearing that?
I'm glad you asked that. You know, when I booted up tonight, my computer, it told me to install a patch.
You do realize... Oh, never mind.
The computer was right, though, I have to say. I should have been a pirate.
Are you talking about the quality of the radio show?
No, of course not. I don't mean pirate radio. I mean, I should have been a pirate, an actual pirate, flesh and blood pirate. I used to spend a lot of time at sea, you know.
Yeah, underwater holding your breath?
No, not underwater. I was on many ships.
Okay, this should be good.
No, really. In fact, I once wrote a poem about my adventures.
I have a funny feeling you want to read it right now.
Thanks for asking. You know, this is a poem I wrote way back in the day when I was sailing all over the world. And actually, I have it right here. The poem is written by me, Bruce Collins, hence the name. Here we go. A pirate I have been, and a pirate I shall be. I have sailed long and far. I have gazed across the foaming seven seas. And I have walked on beaches when the tide came to my ankles.
Wait. Ankles? If you'd have written knees, it would have rhymed.
It was low tide when I wrote it.
Sounds like a fish story.
Oh, you know what? I've got one of those, too. You want to hear it?
Oh, I think we're out of time.
That's okay. I can tell you about it after the show.
No, hey, I'm off the clock. I have to go spend my Monopoly money.
Would that be on Senior Pickles' bow ties?
Hey, don't make fun of that. He has a dress code for dog obedience school. Hey, do you want to hear about his school?
Like you said, Chad, we're out of time. Up next, Roland Watson, Scotland's Loch Ness Monster expert, and Gerald Celente, legendary commentator and founder of the Trends Journal. In a moment. And joining us this week, it's my pleasure to welcome Roland Watson. Roland Watson is the author of The Water Horses of Loch Ness, and he is also the blogger at lochnessmystery.blogspot.com. Again, that's lochnessmystery.blogspot.com. Check out that blog. It's got a lot of interesting information. It's a blog that has been used as a news source for various websites, including Coast to Coast AM's website. Roland Watson, welcome to the Bruce Collins Show.
Thank you, Bruce. Glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on. Now, the obvious first question is, do you personally believe in the Loch Ness Monster, and is the title monster an appropriate term?
Okay, well, I'll tell you the truth. I think I've believed in the monster since the day I was born, because I just cannot think of a time I did not believe in it. I mean, I can go back to 1970s when I was a kid. I was into mysteries, I was into dinosaurs, and it was natural that the Loch Ness Monster should fit into that template. So, yeah, I've been a believer for going on 40 years now, and I've gone through various stages of what I think it is, but I've always held the belief that there's something large, animate, and alive in that loch. So, is the monster an appropriate term? Well, I think it is actually, Bruce, because if you look at it from two extremes, you could call it the Loch Ness animal, which sounds a bit bland, and we haven't really proven it's an animal yet. At the other extreme you could just call it the Loch Ness legend, which just kind of implies that there's nothing there. So the monster, I mean, the term the monster came up in the 1930s when the monster, well, Nessie first hit the headlines. And people weren't really sure what was this thing that was 30 foot long neck, 2 humps going to water, and the monster just seemed the best term. So I'm I think happy to go with it. It kind of puts across the mystery, puts across the idea of something big, large, and unknown in the loch.
So is this likely to be a large sea serpent, like a long snake of some type, or does it actually have a bodily form to it? Yeah,
well, I think there's no doubt that it's a physical kind of entity. Of course, having looked at the various series throughout the years, even if you believe in a paranormal Nessie, you can actually believe it has a solid form. But we've had reports of, obviously the thing registers on photograph, it registers on film. People who have been near it have felt the wave effect of it passing by their boats rock, or the wave hit the shore. So yeah, it's physical, and I'm pretty sure that it originally had its home in the sea. I think basically after the last ice age, 10,000 years ago, when the ice receded and Loch Ness filled up with meltwater, that this object, this creature, whatever it is, got into the loch. Some say it's trapped, others say it can come and go, but I think it is a sea serpent of some kind, though what is another matter.
Now, a lot of people, when they talk about the Loch Ness Monster, they group it into the paranormal. And yep. Do you think that's fair? I saw recently on your blog you had a story about UFOs. Do you think there's any evidence to suggest that there's something strange about the Loch Ness Monster, or do you just think it's a being, a creature that maybe we don't know too much about? Yeah,
it's a good question. I mean, there's been many Loch Ness believers who think there's more to this creature than just flesh and blood. And if we get to talk about my book later, I expand on that. But just for now, is it bodily? Yes. Is it solid? Yes. But something that's paranormal can be solid in the views of many people. In fact, I used to believe it was a paranormal entity as well, back in my younger days. And I've put that to one side just now, but I can perfectly understand why people think that. Now, the reason they can think that is because, well, why hasn't anyone captured it yet? Why haven't we got the conclusive evidence? Why does it seem so elusive? And throughout the years, we've had proponents of this theory like Ted Holliday. He was the main proponent, and they just thought there was more to this object than meets the eye. There was something mysterious going on at Loch. They noticed certain things are going on, just seemed a bit too coincidental. Tim Dinsdale, one of the famous hunters, was also believed in ghosts. He was a member of the Ghost Club, and he often talked about strange goings on at Loch Ness. Lights being seen in the sky, lights coming out of the ground, ghosts, and there was even talk about him being attacked by paranormal entities at Loch Ness at night time. And of course we have the old legends of magicians at Loch Ness. So there's a backdrop to Loch Ness, a paranormal, supernatural. It makes people think twice.
You touched on it, so tell us about your book, The Water Horses of Loch Ness, and what can people find in your book?
Well, I think it comes from various angles of attack. It could be described as a supernatural paranormal book because it studies the oldest theory about the Loch Ness Monster, which is the supernatural view. Because my book, it's not so much about the Loch Ness Monster in modern terms. Most books talk about the Loch Ness Monster appeared in the 30s, and they might occasionally look back in time to older stories. This takes the opposite view. It goes back to the old times, the days of water horses, kelpies, supernatural monsters, things that held the Highland folk in dread and terror. It occasionally looks to the future as well, in the modern era. So, back then, you had water horses, kelpies, and most people in the Highlands believed that there was something strange at Loch Ness, but it wasn't of this world. And but they believed it was solid, and that theory that the creature was some kind of supernatural entity was strong back then, and it's persisted to this day. So it's the oldest theory of the Loch Ness Monster. Now, I just want to expand on the book itself, and it starts off talking about Highland folklore, or the various ghosts, ghoulies, and other things that Highlanders believed in. It focuses then upon the water forms in lochs and along the sea coast. Focuses on then the water horse, the water bulls, kelpies. These were the things which people believed inhabited waters. And then we focus on the Loch Ness water horse itself. Now, the water horse was a creature which was believed to inhabit Loch Ness. And it was believed that this creature would occasionally take the form of a horse and come on the roadside at night time. And tired travellers would come across this beautifully bridled horse and would get on it to ease their journey home, and suddenly they would stick to the bridle and the reins. They couldn't get off. This horse then reveals its true demonic form, races into the loch, drowns them and eats them. And the old stories go that the next day the victim's liver would rise to the surface, because for some reason kelpies don't like human liver. So that kind of story persisted. A story is often used to dissuade children from going too near the loch, but it's really believed to be a physical entity that inhabited the loch.
I want to remind our listeners that we're speaking with Roland Watson. He's the author of The Water Horses of Loch Ness, and he's also the blogger at lochnessmystery.blogspot.com. I'm glad you answered that, because one of the questions I had was, is Nessie, or the Loch Ness Monster, has it been known to be violent, or is there a belief that it can resort to violent measures? And that's interesting. So in your mind, Roland, what are some of the most compelling pieces of evidence that Nessie is real?
Sure. Well, evidence for Nessie is a bit like evidence for UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts. It comes in different forms. You get a credibility scale from great to not so great. You know this yourself, other phenomena. And even the word credible is disputed, and what do we mean by credible? So, I mean, the thing, we have photographs, we have films, varying degrees of credibility. Some I find most convincing are, for example, the first ever photograph of the Loch Ness Monster, taken by Mr. Hugh Gray. That's one of my features on my blog, and we see in that picture a strange creature, a hump, a tail, and this fish-like head looking at you at the camera with its mouth open. And we have other photographs. One of the famous ones is taken by Peter McNabb, which shows a large hump swimming past Orchid Castle, taken in 1955. There's other films. The Dinsdale film I give credence to. There's modern photographs. Now, all these are disputed. We have skeptics who will claim that it's this, that, the other thing. My blog tries to answer these arguments and put the case for these photographs being real. We have, for example, a photograph taken by Roy Johnson, a sequence of photographs in 2001, which shows this neck coming out of the water and bending and splashing back in. But the real thing is, I mean, if all we had was a handful of photographs, that wouldn't be enough. What we have is over 1,500 reported sightings of this creature over 80 years. That it's this corpus, this holistic view that tells you that these people are not just seeing mirages, they're not just seeing boat wakes. We have sightings where people claim to have seen this thing from 60 feet away. We obviously have issues with sightings which are seen a mile away. We're talking about reliable witnesses. We don't have any reason to lie, and they're claiming to see this strange long-necked creature at such distances that there can be no doubt about what they're seeing.
Interesting, yeah. That's very compelling. Now, I know a few years back they were doing sonar in Loch Ness. What came out of that?
Well, Bruce, sonar, I regard that as an important tool in the search, though I say it's underused. The sonar's been around at Loch Ness for nearly 50 years now, and it's improved over the years, just like every other technology. The power, the resolution of its search capability has increased. Through the years, we've had various sonar hits, which are basically inexplicable, and we still get them to this day. The problem is interpreting sonar. So sonar is a bit of an art and a science. If you see a blob on a sonar trace, it's something that's hard to interpret. But people who have experts that have looked at sonar graphs of hits at Loch Ness say this looks like a large animate object. There's two views to this. I mean, some say it's just reflections, side echoes, or something else. Others are more convinced that this does show something large and animate moving at depths of 200, 300, 400 feet. And we've had hits today. They continue to this day, and we're getting better at sonar. We have 3D sonar. We have sonar which is almost photographic in its aspects. And what we really need is more resources put into this. Because I tell you, so it's a great tool, but it's underused. Mm-hmm. Basically, anytime we have a good piece of sonar equipment at Loch Ness, it's usually a commercial company that's just come over to test it, because Loch Ness is a good test bed. You get people in the North Sea oil rigs who use sonar, use ROVs. They come over to Loch Ness to test it. These are expensive bits of equipment. So sonar also has to be used in conjunction with ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, because, as I said, a sonar hit in and of itself isn't enough to prove anything. You got to get the hit, then send down a remotely operated vehicle to check out what it is. Could turn out to be a submerged tree, could turn out to be something else. So that's an ongoing thing. We have high hope for it, but nothing yet.
Yeah. Now, one of the issues your blog addresses in it is a very interesting point, and it may point to perhaps that Nessie is paranormal. But it's the issue of why hasn't a carcass been found of a dead Loch Ness monster? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts? Okay, well, the thing I'd say is that I don't expect a carcass to be found. There's various reasons why there might be no carcass. One is there's no Loch Ness monster, or two, it's some kind of boneless invertebrate animal that decomposes and scavenges quicker. Or it could be a paranormal phenomena which doesn't register a carcass, or it could be that Nessie just comes and goes out the loch and doesn't even die in the loch. But to tell you the truth, let's assume Nessie's a biological entity here. So Loch Ness is a deep, steep-sided loch. So anything that dies drops to the bottom, and at the bottom we have this silted bottom. Silt is basically PT particles that come in from the rivers around the loch. It's also cold. Now, cold temperatures decelerate to decelerate decomposition. So things don't decompose so quickly. Because the thing about decomposition is that it generates gases, methane, and that swells up the body and the thing rises to the surface. That's how things normally work. The Loch Ness is colder, and that gives time for animals at the bottom, scavengers, to eat up the body. We also have acidity, which can eat away at the bones over the years. So there's things here which militate against finding anything. And the other thing is the silt level at Loch Ness, the various muds and particles that feed into the loch is rising over the years, so eventually everything gets buried. So we don't have high hopes of finding a carcass. The other thing is that if the animal has a cartilaginous body like a shark, it decomposes even quicker. So I don't see why we should get any carcass so easily.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, when you hear about different types of phenomena, especially the UFO phenomenon, people always talk about government cover-ups and keeping the evidence a secret. Is there anything to suggest that the Scottish government is trying to cover up the Loch Ness Monster in any way?
Well, we often get freedom of information requests, and things do turn up. But in my research, I haven't seen anything yet that suggests that there's anything to hide about the Loch Ness Monster. Often I get emails from readers who think that there is a cover-up. But they tend to be people who don't believe in evolution, and they think that if the monster is discovered to be a plesiosaur, that'll blow the theory of evolution out of the water. But my take is that the Loch Ness Monster isn't a plesiosaur, so this is not an issue at all. So at this point in time, I haven't discovered anything that suggests, like UFOs, that there's a Loch Ness Monster body being held in deep freeze somewhere. I don't see a reason for that at this point. So no.
Yeah. Now, you recently gave a talk at the Edinburgh Fortean Society about the F.C. Adams photograph. What do you make of that photograph?
Well, we have a series of photos which are called the classic photographs. These are a series of photographs taken between 1933 and 1960. It's about 7 or so black and white pictures. The surgeon photograph is the most famous one. They tend to form the bedrock of pictures taken by, form a bedrock of opinion that form the backbone of many a book or an essay in the 70s. F.C. Adams is a picture I'd say is a kind of runt of the pack, or the litter. I've done some research into it. There's more to it, I think, and I'll be publishing that in my blog soon, but it could show a dorsal fin. It could not. But I'm not entirely sure what it is actually telling me. So, and there's also a possibility it wasn't taken by F.C. Adam at all, that actually there's links here, unknown persons I talk about, and the nobility is involved, royal nobility. So it's a fascinating story, and I hope to publish it soon. It could be a Loch Ness Monster, but there's reason to believe it isn't either.
Interesting. Well, we'll be watching your blog. Again, the blog is lochnessmystery.blogspot.com. Roland Watson, he's also the author of The Water Horses of Loch Ness. And Roland, thank you so much for joining us this week. I would love to have you back in the future.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me, Bruce.
Great. And joining us this week is Mr. Gerald Celente. It's an honor to have Mr. Celente back with us. Gerald Celente is a pioneer trends strategist who founded the Trends Research Institute in 1980. He is the author of the national bestseller Trends 2000 and Trend Tracking, Far Better Than Megatrends. And he is the publisher of the internationally distributed quarterly Trends Journal. For more than 3 decades, Celente has built his reputation as a fearless teller of the truth, an accurate forecaster, and an analyst whose expertise crosses many arenas, from economics to politics, from health to science, and more. Most important, Celente is a pure political atheist, unencumbered by political dogma, rigid ideology, or conventional wisdom. Celente, whose motto is think for yourself, observes and analyzes the current events, forming future trends, seeing them for what they are, not as what he'd like them to be. You can find out more information about Gerald Celente and his Trends Journal Quarterly at trendsjournal.com. And again, that's trendsjournal.com. Gerald Celente, welcome back to the Bruce Collins Show.
Thanks for having me on, Bruce, and thanks for that wonderful introduction.
Now, Gerald, in your latest Trends Journal, you talk about our batch of 2016 presidential hopefuls as liars, cowards, freaks, and fools. And I was a Ron Paul supporter in 2008 and 2012, but even his son, Rand, seems to be a shadow of his father. Our listeners may be asking, why does the scum always seem to rise to the top of the presidential pond?
You know, it's kind of an international plague. It's not unique to the United States. The people that seek power are the ones you couldn't stand in high school and college that wanted to be class president and head of the student council. The insincere, the overly ambitious, the glad-handers, the brown-nosers, and it's a closed circle. It's a closed club. There are 6 words that have destroyed the United States: Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. You look at the people involved, and again, it's a global issue. You go over to France, it's the same club. You go over to England, same club. You go around the world, it's basically the same club. It's a small club in control. And in the United States, the people have lost the will to rise up against what I look at, and I don't say this is a conspiracy theory, I only use fact, as a fascist government control. Mm-hmm. For example, people say, the problems with the economy, there are people that say it's a failure of capitalism. It's not capitalism. In capitalism, there's no such thing as too big to fail. That's fascism, the merger of state and corporate powers. Right. There's no revolving door in government where it's corporations telling politicians what to do. The corporations are running the show. Who was the head of the Treasury when they came up with too big to fail? Hank Paulson. Where was he from? Goldman Sachs. Mm-hmm. Who's the guy that helped deregulate the Glass-Steagall Act under Bill Clinton? Robert Rubin. Where did he come from? He was Treasury Secretary under Clinton. Goldman Sachs. Who's the guy that's the head of the European Central Bank? Mario Draghi. Where's he from? Goldman Sachs. Who's the head of the Bank of England? Guy from Goldman Sachs. One after another. It's either Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan Chase. It goes back to, Jesus driving the money changes out of the temple. Right. Nothing has changed. Just a different crew with different names.
Maybe we should pass over the politics. It seems so depressing. Now, a very important and overlooked point.
Well, yes and no, because the opportunity now is so great for something new. I've been at this since 1980. One of the ways I made my name was by forecasting a new third party in my book Trend Tracking in 1988 by 1992, when I mentioned Ross Perot. The time is ready for that now. When you look at how low the popularity ratings are of these candidates, it could be filled now. And that's the opportunity. So it's to look at, yes, this is what it is, but it doesn't have to be like this if the people decide it to be different.
You, I believe, were also a Ron Paul supporter. He was the type of candidate, I think, that many people were looking for. In fact, they called him Dr. No. Do you see anyone like that on the horizon right now? No, you're right. I was a Ron Paul supporter. I mean, I wasn't a supporter. I would have voted for him. And I would have voted for Ralph. I did. I voted for Ralph Nader. I want honest men and women. I don't want psychopaths and sociopaths. Yeah. Rand Paul was interviewed right after he announced, and he said, we wrote about it in the Trends Journal. He said, I talked to a lot of people, and they say, all the candidates out there that are running for president, when they were kids, in the 8th grade, they said they wanted to be president. That's the mentality. Yeah.
And so it's up to we the people. We're losing a great nation because we have very self-serving people destroying it. Whether it's Obama, the Clintons, the Bushes, one after another, with nothing but failure as a track record. And they keep putting more failure on top of other failure. So it's up to the people. And I really believe that. That's not an empty line.
Yeah.
You know, the future is in our hands. And the people just don't want to recognize their role in it. There's this wonderful quote by Samuel Adams. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men.
Do you still see this third party rising up? It seems like a lot of people in the United States are duped by the media.
Well, they are. And, you know, President Obama came out the other day criticizing the Russian media. And he said, you know, how one-sided it was, and this would never happen in the United States. What a load of baloney.
Yeah.
We got 6 companies that control over 90% of the media in America. Oh, by the way, you can thank Bill Clinton for that one. He deregulated the Federal Communications Act back in 1996. It wasn't allowed before. So we're hearing one voice. That's why I call the media prostitutes.
Yeah.
And so while he's condemning the Russian media, you know, I used to be on Oprah, the Today Show. They used to fight for me in the beginning of the year, all the major networks, to get me on first with my list of new trends. I used to be on CNBC, MSNBC, you name the person, from O'Reilly to Brian Williams. Nobody has me back anymore, not even Fox. But you know who has me on? Russian television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That shows you how bad it's got.
Yes.
So yes, you're 100% right. It's brainwashing. It's propaganda. Mm-hmm. Look how the New York Times sold us the Iraq War with the lies of yellow cake and aluminum tubes. Look how they're pumping up these ISIS's story. In Sunday's New York Times, a big front page spread of a girl that was a Sunday school teacher that's now been influenced by ISIS and may go to fight. So what? You got one kid out of 315 million people? Well, we got an army of 1.5 million? How many people does ISIS have? According to the CIA, at top 31,000. This is a front page story. It's fear and hysteria. Yeah. That's all it is. So yes, the propaganda is very powerful. Heil Hitler.
Speaking of that, the militarization of the police is obviously a concern. Where do you see the issue of police brutality going in the future?
Again, unless the people, the police brutality. This is a story we did in the Trends Journal. It's a fallout of America's global brutality. You got a lot of these guys coming into the police force that have been, you know, in Iraq and Afghanistan, slaughtering people in countries we had no business invading. Mm-hmm. You know, Saddam Hussein, the weapons of mass destruction, ties to Al Qaeda. Forgot that one? And what did they kill? Over 1 million people there? And when the people try to fight back, what do they call them? Insurgents? Militants? Oh, I got it. Foreigners come in, attack your country based on lies, and when you try to throw them out, you're a militant and an insurgent. So the police have picked up that mentality. They treat the people in the states the way they treat the people in conquered countries. And look what the military-industrial complex has done. It's fed the police forces with the weaponry and equipment that they use in foreign countries to go after we the people. By the way, on New Year's Eve, New Year's Eve 2011, President Obama signed in the National Defense Authorization Act, which repealed the Posse Comitatus Act of the late 1800s. I think it was about 1876, that prevented the military from having police functions in the states. He repealed that. So the militarization of the police is the militarization against we the people. As I said, it's no longer capitalism, it's fascism.
And this is a scary thought, but it seems like we're in a negative feedback loop where a bad economy, a culture that feeds on violence, look at the video games and all of that, and also the media that loves a good riot. They get right in the middle of it. We're almost looking at a civil war if this doesn't change, aren't we?
Yes. You're looking at massive social unrest. Look how they pumped up this thing about two guys escaping prison in New York. Mm-hmm. What's the big deal? Two guys escaped prison. What it cost? About $25 billion to find them? $25 million to find them? As our cities are rotting away, our roads are all torn up. And they were murderers. Yeah. You know what these guys would have done when they got out of it? They would have hid and disappeared. You think they're going on a murdering spree? But it's the militarization and pumping up of that mentality. We got our man. Big deal.
Yeah.
How many murders are committed each day? So what I'm saying is, yes, there's going to be, but there's going to be a civil war for the wrong reasons. And the reasons are going to be that you have a declining culture of society that will use any excuse it can to get what it doesn't have, rather than changing a system that has turned corrupt. And that, to me, is the way to change it, nonviolently. Matter of fact, in September, we're holding Occupy Peace up here in Colonial Kingston, New York, on the most historic four corners in the United States, the only place where there's a pre-Revolutionary War stone building on each corner. And the motives of Occupy Peace aren't a rally to yell and scream. We have objectives. We're to honor thy founding fathers, beginning with George Washington. Bring home the troops. No foreign entanglements. Jefferson, Madison, Adams, Franklin, every one of them. No foreign entanglements. And the world was at war back then. And the other objective is that Congress has yet to have voted for the United States to go to war since World War II. They've only voted to give the president the power. So part of Occupy Peace is that Congress has to vote any time we go in to another country. And thirdly, direct democracy, we the people. On each state ballot, we will have a referendum where we will tell our senators and congressmen whether or not to go to war. Because after all, we the people are the ones that pay for war with our money and our lives. You never see the senators' sons going. So these guys that call themselves commander-in-chief that can't fight their way out of a paper bag have really big mouths. So if they want to go fight in another country, do like what Washington did. Lead the charge or shut your trap. So Occupy Peace is the way we believe in restoring America, in the terms of bringing home the troops, sealing the borders, and rebuilding America, putting the troops to work to rebuild our infrastructure, a giant work projects administration project.
And I want to remind our listeners, we're speaking with Gerald Celente. He is the founder of Trends Journal Quarterly. You can find out more information at trendsjournal.com. And there's also information in this quarter's publication about Occupy Peace. So you want to get a hold of that. Again, Gerald Celente at trendsjournal.com. Now, Gerald, given that the technology of Silicon Valley has the potential to enslave our every move, the Trends Journal has picked up on the dangerous relationship going on between the tech industry and Washington, D.C. How serious is this issue?
It's very serious. Matter of fact, that piece was penned by Nomi Prinz, who also wrote the book All the President's Bankers. And Bruce, we just had a conference here in June. We have 4 a year at the Trends Research Institute, and Nomi Prinz was one of the speakers. And just 2 days before she came here, she was a keynote speaker at the Federal Reserve, speaking to members of the Federal Reserve, the World Bank, and the IMF. So that piece is penned by Nomi Prinz, and it's serious. Just as I said, it's fascism, the merger of state and corporate powers. Silicon Valley, it's a con job. They have Washington in its pocket. And they're very much involved also, as we all know, with the Big Brother listening to every word that we speak, every action that we take. So they're becoming a major influence, along with the bankers, in controlling we the people. And it's an article, again, in great depth, detailed by Nomi Prinz. There's nothing like it anywhere. And besides the Trends Journal, by the way, we have a Trends Monthly that's a digital. We have both Trends Journal and digital and print. Trends Monthly is only digital. We do a Trends This Week, and each weekday night, we do Trends in the News, a 15-minute broadcast each Monday through Friday. So the subscription goes far beyond just a Trends Journal.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I've never been a drug user except caffeine and maybe whatever has been snuck into my GMO food. So I really have never been very vocal about marijuana. But Trends Journal has looked into the effects of marijuana. What was found?
Well, there are positives and negatives to it. The negative, of course, is all the people that have been thrown into jail, for smoking some weed. And just to stay on that point for a moment, this is a neo-feudal society where you have special laws for the political elite and the economic nobility. You didn't see one head roll when banks were convicted of felonies for rigging the interest rates and the currency markets, the Forex and the LIBOR.
Right.
Not one head. But somebody gets high, got caught a little bit of weed or dealing some, you got millions of people whose lives have been ruined. So what we're saying is they should not legalize it. They should decriminalize it. On the other end of the spectrum, there are studies showing that, there used to be a thing called a rite of passage. You have to be a certain age before you do certain things. And young people's minds, the brains and the whole body, the cells, etc., they haven't been developed yet. So to get high at a young age, there are studies showing that this really does damage over a longer period of time. So there are positives and negatives to it. But what we're saying is, at any event, it should not be legalized, because the only reason the government is legalizing it is so they could collect taxes on it, and they could get in the game. So, for example, I was, one of my people ask me how I got started in the field. I used to run political campaigns in Westchester County in New York out of a graduate school. And I was so good at it, they sent me up to Albany. I was the assistant to the secretary of the New York State Senate. And I was there when they legalized Lotto. All my life as a kid growing up in the Bronx and Yonkers, I used to hear these stories. Everybody used to play the numbers, That was the last three numbers that came out at Aqueduct Raceway. You had to guess what the attendance was. And, the vegetable guy would run the numbers, anybody, the barber. And, every now and then they'd break the ring, and these big DAs would come out and say, yes, the people are only betting a quarter or a dollar, but these are hard-working people, and they're using this criminality to take what they can't afford to bet on illegal. And they'd go on and on, Mm-hmm. So now I remember when I was up there in the Senate, when they passed Lotto. You got to be in it to win it, so that the state can get their cut of the gambling money. And they're doing the same thing with drugs. It's disgusting. These are immoral people. They're low lives. We have a cast of political clowns ruining and running the country, and everyone is afraid to call them out. Instead, they roll out the red carpet and salute. There's no better example than the hypocrisy from people that call themselves progressive Democrats and liberals. Mm-hmm. As Obama passes through the Trans-Pacific Partnership, when he lied and should be brought up for treason when he was candidate Obama, railing out against the NAFTA. I'm going to get in there as president, and I'm going to revisit this. This is an unjust act that's hurting our people in the Rust Belt states where I need votes. So I'll lie and say I'm going to repeal it and fix it and make it more equitable when it needs to change and make it so that the people have their manufacturing jobs. But being that I'm Obama the betrayer, I'm going to shove the Trans-Pacific Partnership down your throat, and you, the little people, won't even be allowed to read it. And the Democrats pushed it through, and you don't see any liberal protests. Instead, they give Hillary Clinton a free ride and don't even push her to discuss the act.
Unbelievable.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
These people should be brought up on charges. Bush should be brought up on criminal charges for lying us into the war. Who knew what when? Why can't we see it? No, you can't see it, Celente. You only pay taxes. You're not a real person here. We are a neo-feudal society. We'll tell you what you can do. Can I see who knew what when? No, you can't. These are government secrets. This is a fascist country. That's what it's turned into. The facts are before us. Anybody wants to dispute them, lay out where I'm wrong.
A very important and overlooked point you make in your latest Trends Journal is how important the ability to store energy will be in the coming years. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, sure. We have Ben Davis, one of the top people in the country, if not the world, as our writer on alternative energy. And it's not going to be alternative energy very soon. It's going to be dominant energy. And it's happening with beyond wind, solar, biofuels, and other types of things that are in place now. There are new breakthroughs coming back. Even the Saudis are saying that alternatives are going to be dominant by 2050. So Ben has all the outlines of what's next, what to expect, and where to find it, not only in terms of how it's going to change our lives and what it's going to mean, but what you may consider looking at as investment opportunities as well. Because that's what we do in the Trends Journal. We don't only make the forecast, we provide the opportunities and the dangers to avoid. So this is going to be something we believe when alternative energy is going to be as important as the discovery of fire and the invention of the wheel. Do you think, Bruce, that we would be in Libya, in Iraq, and the Middle East if their major export was broccoli?
No.
It's all about oil. As a matter of fact, it didn't make the news. They had leaked emails going to Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State from Sarkozy of France, who pushed the Libyan war along with Hillary, and how they were bringing in executives from the oil companies in France and supporting the people to overthrow Gaddafi in return for getting 35% of the oil business. The facts are there. The emails are real. It's all about what the most decorated man in American history up to World War II, Smedley Butler said, Major General Smedley Butler, war is a racket. Mm-hmm. So energy is going to end part of that racket. And when we get off the grid, you're going to see a very whole new world develop around us. And most of it in a positive way. You know, one thing I like to mention, too, for people to tune into, what's going on between Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Yemen's the poorest country in the Middle East, and Saudi Arabia, they're like the fourth largest arms buyer in the world, and they're using their arms to slaughter these people who've done nothing. Belligerently, nothing, no border crossings, nothing. And they're under the guise that they're going to restore the legitimate president of Yemen, who was deposed. And the legitimate president of Yemen was elected with nobody running against him and was propped up by the United States and Saudi Arabia after they threw the other guy out that was in office for 33 years and the corruption, etc. That's a big one to watch. The other one, people are focusing on what's going on in Greece with the debt crisis and them unable to make a deal with the IMF. The really one to look at that's bigger than that is the Shanghai index has collapsed. It's down over 20%. It's in a bear market. It fell that within less than 2 weeks. That's the one really to look at, because China is really the engine that's keeping a lot of the world going in a lot of ways. And they have a real estate bubble that's collapsed. Now their equity markets are collapsing. So we can see some real heavy-duty fallout coming from that incident.
Something to watch. Gerald Celente, TrendsJournal.com. Now, before you go, tell us about your online footprint. Where are you all around the Internet? Tell us about that.
Well, of course we have Facebook and Twitter, and, we do radio shows, TV shows, and, we have YouTube. We post 2 trends, and then we posted 2 of our trends in the news each week on YouTube. So we're throughout the media, the digital world. We had several million people follow us on YouTube each year.
Mm-hmm. And also you can go to trendsresearch.com and trendsjournal.com. That's the more important one, trendsjournal.com. Gerald Celente. Gerald, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Bruce.
Hello, everyone. This is Bruce Collins, the host of The Bruce Collins Show, every Friday night right here at WWPR 1490 AM and at IPBN-FM.com. I just want to thank you all for listening every week and supporting the show in any way that you can. We do not ask for donations. However, in lieu of that, if you would feel led to send a donation to organizations that are helping the poor, feeding the hungry, clothing the needy, we would appreciate that as thanks. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Bruce Collins Show, where you can find us every Friday night at midnight here at WWPR 1490 AM. Remember, God loves you. We do too. Don't give up.